Hi everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Today we are going to bake up our sourdough breads. We've got a traditional loaf and then a caramelized onion, garlic, and sage loaf. Then we are going to fry up some chicken cutlets and then make kind of like a marry me chicken, but it's going to be a marry me chicken with some crispy chicken in it. So a little twist on it. Okay, let's get our sourdough going in the oven so it can bake up. So I've got my traditional loaf out. These are what we made up yesterday. So we're going to give it a good score. And let's see what we're going to do today. I'm always kind of get to be the plain Jane. Maybe we'll do some weird try, a little straight across. It's going to look like a I don't know, weird, just trying out different things. I'm always like, you see all those people who like spend all that time to do those like amazing little like things, designs in their loaf. And I'm just like, it works. I just care about eating it. Okay, this is the one I'm really excited for. I lost my mic. I absolutely love sage, and I had a bunch in my garden. It's finally coming through. It's a perennial, and then we caramelized up some onions and we put some garlic in here. So this one I love because I love savory loaves. So we're just going to do a nice big expansion score, and let's just do some little mini triangles down. There we go. And rotate it. And the main thing with these is all the little ones are for decoration, but the big scores that we do in the middle, they're called expansion scores, and that's for when the spring happens, when it bakes up. It allows the bread to go out and it doesn't keep it tight and dense. So it's it's pretty important to do. Okay. Let's get this guy in here. My Dutch ovens were preheated in the oven for 500 for the last hour. I like to preheat them. That way they're nice and hot and toasty. And so we're going to cook these up at 500 for 20 minutes. Then we're going to take the lid off and cook them for 20 minutes at 450. And this is going to be our bread with our chicken pasta tonight. So we're going to fry up some chicken cutlets, and then we're going to make kind of like a marry me chicken sauce. This guy. Yeah. And I'm going to set my timer for 20 minutes so I know to take off the lid. Okay. Let's get dinner going. Okay, I'm going to take my lid off. We have our water boiling here. I am actually, today is like use up everything in our pantry. So I have a couple different like pastas that are at the bottom, but they all have a slightly different cooking time. So we're going to add in our falafel first, and then after a minute or two, we're going to add in the next ones. So it'll just kind of be a jumbled mix of pasta, but they all taste the same and they'll be delicious.
Do you always make bread for dinner?
Not every night. Well, I always make a grain. I do sourdough about every couple of days. Every 2 to 3 days, I'll bake up 2 loaves. But otherwise, I'll do biscuits, rolls, focaccia. So we do have a grain almost every single night, or like naan or tortillas. I'm gonna put a little bit of salt in here because we are going to use this pasta water in our sauce. But we don't do, I just like to cook up 2 loaves because we like to use them for sandwiches and whatnot. So they're, and they last. I will say sourdough makes the best grilled cheeses. But we do typically have a grain every single day. That's kind of my way with, I have a big family. I've got 5 kids, and not all the kids necessarily like a meal, but they typically always like the bread and the fruit. So I do it as a way that every kid has at least something on their plate that they like. Okay, we're going to make the dredge for our chicken. This is a 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. And we are going to season it with about a tablespoon of basil, dried basil. Give it a good shake. About a tablespoon of dried oregano. A tablespoon of paprika. That's going to give it a really nice golden color when it fries up. There we go. There we go. And then about a tablespoon of onion powder. A teaspoon of black pepper. And then about a tablespoon of garlic salt. I've got time to open up my new garlic salt. The other one had just a little teeny tiny bit in. I will say I use garlic salt, and anytime I'm making savory, I use pretty much garlic salt in place of regular salt. I just think it tastes better. So we're going to use about a tablespoon of garlic salt.
You have a question. What type of sauce are you making with the chicken?
It's kind of like a Mary meat chicken sauce. So it's going to be, fresh tomatoes, spinach, onions, peppers, and then it's going to be in a light cream sauce where we're going to use a little bit of cream and a little bit of pasta water to get the nice flavors up. Okay, we're going to give this a nice stir. And to mix these herbs in, and this is what we're going to dredge it in, and then we're going to add a little bit of breadcrumbs to it afterwards. So we're going to do we're going to bread them up and then fry it because that way the kids can have the chicken on top of it. And if there's leftover chicken, my son loves it. He'll want it in his lunch tomorrow if there's leftovers, which I doubt. Okay, we got that mixed up. I forgot to grab 3 eggs. So I'm going to grab 3 eggs. Oh, I got to go outside and grab my eggs, my second batch. So be 1 second. Okay. Got it. Must have used up all my ones inside. I always have like dozens and dozens of eggs here with me. Because, the kids always want eggs or whatnot. Okay, we had the pasta in for just a second. Let me give it a stir. We're going to put our next 2 ones in that don't need quite as long. Again, we're just using up the bits and pieces of our old ones, which will be great in this kind of sauce. We'll make it look a little fun. I will say Teddy always likes it because he's like, wait, this is a different noodle. Okay, let's crack our eggs in here. So we're going to do 3 eggs and just a splash of cream to make a nice batter for our chicken. So here. And then I'm just going to use my fork. We're going to pop the yolks and we're going to whip it up into a nice little egg batter. I'll say these egg yolks are very vibrant and orange. There we go. And you just want to make sure that you get all those egg whites mixed into it so that they'll go on your chicken cutlets nicely. There we go. There we go. Okay, so in order for your chicken cutlets to cook up quickly, we're going to cut them in half, make them nice and thin. So we're going to cut them almost as if you were going to butterfly them, but you're going to just go all the way through. This way you don't have to pound out your chicken into thin things. Now, if they are still really thick after that, you might want to pound them out just to make sure they cook up evenly and through. But I find this is just an easy way to get them nice and thin that will cook up nicely. And these, chicken breasts are pretty big. So, you don't need a full one. They're huge. So one chicken, at least in our family, we do 1 chicken cutlet feeds 2 people because they are pretty big. Here we go. And let's get this guy cut all the way through. And when I'm cutting it, I'm taking the fattest part of the chicken cutlet, and that's where I'm dividing it in half. And then I'm just trying to go as evenly through with the other way. There we go. Okay. We've got our chicken cutlets. Now we're going to dredge them. And this is where I like to keep one hand clean and one hand is going to be my hand. Let's get this at least prepped before we start. Because we're going to add in some seasoned breadcrumbs. And I'm going to use Italian seasoned breadcrumbs, but they add a little extra flavor. And we're going to do that after we dredge all of our chicken pieces. So we're going to coat them in this nice seasoned flour. And you really want to make sure it's really well in season because this is what sticks to the chicken first. So this is the flavor that's going to stay on the chicken the most. And so I know a lot of people will just do plain flour or cornstarch to dredge their chicken in, but you got to season it up. That gives you your chicken the best flavor all the way through. There we go. And then we're going to dredge them. Then we'll dip them. We're going to add some more breadcrumbs to this mixture. And then we'll do the egg washing back into it. The dredging is key to keeping on the breading on our chicken. Without it, your chicken will the breading will just slide off during the fry process. And you'll have, half your breading will be gone. So this helps keep it on. Now, if you wanted to do a really light fry, you could, of course, just fry it up like this, and it would have a very light kind of crispy crust on it, which is pretty good too. But my kids do like the more crunchy of the crust on, so we'll do the double. Here we go. So we've got this. Now we're going to add about a cup to a cup and a half of breadcrumbs. I kind of just eyeball it. So that's about a cup and a half. And then I'm just going to use my hand that's already there. We're going to just mix this up. And these are just regular breadcrumbs, but panko is also delicious for that. Gives you a bigger crunch on it. But I used up all my panko breadcrumbs, so we're using just regular. It's funny. Most people use their breadcrumbs for meatballs. I never use breadcrumbs in meatballs because I think it dries out my meatball. Instead, I soak my bread in like a slice of bread in milk, and I use that in place of breadcrumbs. So for me, my breadcrumbs are really only for breading on meat and fish. And there's like a couple things. We do chicken a lot, and then of course fish like tilapia, and then pork tenderloins. I'll do that as a lot. Bread that and make pork tenderloin sandwiches. It's pretty delicious.
I have a question. Can you go over the seasonings again?
Yes. So for this one, we used about a tablespoon. So of all of these ingredients, about a tablespoon of it. So basil, oregano, onion powder, paprika, and garlic salt. And then we used a teaspoon of black pepper. Now you could add more pepper if you like, but I just think a teaspoon's good. And then you mix that all up in about a cup and a half of all-purpose flour. And then you dredge, and then you're going to add about a cup and a half of seasoned breadcrumbs to it. There we go. And coat this. I always like to get these up and breaded first in our meal because this is the messiest part. And once we can get back to this, then I'm not tied up. Because as you can see, you get quite messy. But it is delicious. And I will say, like, people think, oh, I can't do this at home. And I'm like, you can. It's actually easier than you think. It's not as hard, but it is delicious. And I have about 3 more cutlets left. And we are cooking for tonight. We are cooking for 8. So we do have 8 cutlets. And and my little ones probably won't eat. They'll like Teddy and Jack will probably share one. So Torn might get lucky. He might get some leftovers. There we go. And it looks like 3 eggs are going to be just about perfect. I have 1 more cutlet after this. There we go. And nice and seasoned. And here's our last one. I'm going to get my egg all the way around it. You want to make sure you coat it up. So when you dredge it, that allows the egg to stick to, or the flour and the breading to stick to it. So that is like key, is to do the dredging first, then the egg. Okay. And now we've got these all put up, and this is going to get my hands nice and clean first. I always get a little bit messy with this part. Okay. Okay. Now we've got our breading all ready here. Let's get our oil heated up so we can start cooking up that, and then we're going to start prepping our vegetables and everything. I'm just going to put enough oil to cover the bottom of the pan. You don't need to have it so your whole chicken breast is submerged, just the bottom, because we're going to flip it on both sides and cook. And when you put the chicken in it, it increases the height of the oil. So I'm going to start it on high, and then we're going to turn it down low. And I'll slide this right over here for when we're ready for it. And then I'm going to clean up my little mess here before we start prepping. I'll say the breading part is never the cleanest part. You get always a little bit of flour everywhere. There we go. Grab my cutting board. I always like to use one cutting board for my fruits and vegetables, and then one for my meat. Just helps me keep it in track because I can sanitize one really, really well. Although I feel like nowadays people get E. coli the most from spinach and cantaloupe than they do from chicken and eggs. Okay, we've got our chicken breaded, our pasta. I'm just going to check on our pasta real quick, give it a nice feel, see how it is. Okay, still needs about 3 or 4 more minutes. Let's get our onion. We're going to start making our sauce. So I'm going to have 1 yellow onion, and we're going to dice it up. So we're going to cut off, and then I'm just going to remove this whole top layer. And I just take it right there. Don't even bother trying to pick off the brown stuff. Just get rid of that whole top layer. It's not worth the extra effort. And then we're going to dice these up fairly small because I do like to have a nice, a minced onion in it versus a big chunk of onion. And my kids prefer it. If it's minced up, they don't even know it's there. They love the flavor of it, but you know how kids are. Oh, you gave me a vegetable, Mom. Are you trying to kill me? So nice and small. They'll caramelize up and get tender really nice. And they won't detract from the texture of the sauce. There we go. So and we'll mince up the other one as well. And then we'll have these start sauteing in my big pan over here. Because what we're going to do is we're going to make the sauce for it, and then we'll add our pasta into it because I love to dress my pasta in the sauce. You know, a lot of people make the sauce and then have the pasta and they serve it separate. I like to really submerge my pasta in the sauce and allow it to really soak up those flavors. But then you got to make sure when you cook your pasta, you cook it at a good al dente. Okay, so we've got our onions here. And where did I put you? Put about I want to say a tablespoon to 2 in our big pot, and this is we're gonna start making the base for our sauce for our chicken, kind of marry me pasta tonight. So it's kind of like if you've heard of the viral marry me chicken, but a kind of a fresher take on it. They used sun-dried tomatoes in there. I'm going to use some fresh tomatoes in mine, but we're going to make a kind of creamy tomato, basil, mushroom and spinach in here sauce, and then we're going to fry up our chicken cutlets so that you can have a chicken on it at the side. Let me get We're going to stir this up. I just want to make sure I coat all of my onions in the olive oil. Here we go. And we're going to let those start to caramelize up. While we're doing that, let's get our tomatoes prepped. So I have a bunch of vine ripe tomatoes here because I think they're going to add a nice freshness to our pasta. I know the traditional Marry Me has sun-dried tomatoes in it. And while I love sun-dried tomatoes, two of my kids do not prefer them. So I do this with fresh tomatoes instead. So we're just going to cut out the little vine spots because those don't ever cook up well. So I'm sticking my knife in the tip in, and I'm just kind of going right around it in like a circle. And then I should be able to pop that out. And this looks like we got a little brown. Okay, one more to go. And then what we do with the tomatoes, we're just going to dice them up kind of small, almost like the size that tomatoes are in like a really chunky salsa. That will be the perfect size for them. Because if you get any bigger, then your skins will be a little large and chewy. Okay, let's test up our pasta. See if it's ready. And what we'll do before we drain it, we're going to steal about a cup or 2 cups of the water. Perfect. So don't drain your pasta because the pasta water is what's going to give you a really delicious velvety sauce without all of the cream that you would need in a full-on cream sauce. So you're going to want about 2 cups of the starchy water. And regular water just won't do. You need the starch in it because it will naturally thicken up your pasta sauce. So it's a good substitute for cream, and so it can give you that nice creamy pasta for like a fraction of the calories. There we go. So I've got good 2 cups of my warm pasta water. It looks like our oil is nice and ready. You can tell because an onion flew in there and it's sauteing up. So we can put our first cutlets in there, and then we'll drain our pasta. So, and then because I'm going to turn my oil down now to about a 5, I had it heating up, and then once I put them in, I turn it down because you don't want to burn your chicken before it's cooked through. So get your oil hot, then turn it down so it cooks at a steady rate.
You have a question, what fruit tonight?
We are going to finally cut up our hammy melon. I have it. We ended up just having a pineapple last night that we already had cut up. And so we're going to we'll have that. I'm going to cut it up here in a little bit. But before our sourdough is calling up, we are going to drain this real quick. Okay. That way. And let's turn this down while we go take the lids off our sourdough. So we did 20 minutes at 500. Now I'm going to take them out, take the lids off, and we're going to reduce the temperature down to 450. Okay, I hear you. Okay, so we've got our first one. Beautiful. This is our sage, garlic, and caramelized onion. And this is our traditional loaf. So you've got the nice little spring on it. And now we're going to bake it at 450 for 20 more minutes. And you do it with the lid off so you get that nice golden crust color. So let me bake my oven. 450. Some people like to keep it at 500, but I find that I like a nice light mild crust. Why won't you? There we go. So 20 minutes. Boom.
Yeah, I have a question. Do you have your own cookbook, or where's the recipe for the sourdough?
I do not have my own cookbook, but on the link on our page, we do have a couple videos and a recipe card posted for our sourdough. So any bread or whatnot we've made here, we have the videos there uploaded, and the title should get you right towards it, so you can recreate any of our breads. That's probably the best way.
And you have a question. What type of pans are those?
So this one is a hex clad, I believe, a 10-inch like fry pan, and this is an all clad sauce pan. So it's not a frying pan, but it's technically a sauce pot, and it's I think the 12-inch, which is nice for a big family like ours. Okay.
And then a strange question. What type of cheese are those?
These are good old Target for like $19.99. It's really funny because my daughter has them as well. And I will say I grew up in the era of flip-flops, and I have just recently switched to not wearing flip-flops all the time. And growing up, my mom used to always say, "Don't wear flip-flops all the time. Your feet will get flat and wide." I have size 11 shoes and I have hobbit feet. They are flat and wide, and I should have listened to her because nobody else in the family has these. And I literally went from wearing like flip-flops half the year to wearing Uggs half the year, which is no support. Hindsight, probably should have listened to her. Maybe she knew what she was talking about with one of her, doctorates, but I did not listen to her. And I finally got to the point where I kept tripping in my flip-flops. And so my daughter was like, "Mom, you just need to wear slides. They're so much better." So I was like, fine. And I got these, and I do like them. And they make me feel really tall. I am a tall person to begin with. I'm like 5'9". I'm not short. But these like make me 5'11". So I feel like really tall in them, and I really like it. I always tell my daughter, who I thought she was going to be so tall, and she's like stuck at 5'5.5", and I call her a shrimp. And I think she's done growing. She might make it to 5'6", but she's gonna be a shrimpy. And I keep looking at her when I'm wearing my shoes, and I'm like, "Oh, you're so short." So I do like them. They're just like a mock Birkenstock. There we go. But again, Target is where it's at. Target. I'm not a very bougie person. I might make bougie food, but I am the farthest thing from bougie. I live in sweatshirts and leggings and like skirts. I'm very simple.
Yeah, a comment. 5'6" isn't a shrimp. She's 5 foot even.
Yeah, I know she's technically not a shrimp, but I love teasing her for it. So, I got to bring her down. She's like wickedly bright, and she's like super talented, like athletically and academically. So, we got to bring her down sometimes. Can't let her live on top of the moon all the time. Okay, we've got our chicken cooking up nice and golden brown crisp. Let's give this a nice stir. Let's slide this over so my burner can go on. Okay, we're dicing up our tomatoes because we're going to add these to our onions in just a second. Again, what I'm doing is kind of like a chunky salsa cut on them, so a smaller dice. Leave the skins on. You don't need to peel the skin off. They'll be great in it. I know some people are like, "Oh, you got to pull the skins off your tomatoes." And I'm like, A, who has time for that? And B, they taste delicious.
Yeah, question. What do you bread the chicken with?
It is a mixture of flour and breadcrumbs and lots of seasonings. We kind of did, since this is kind of an Italian theme, we stuck with the Italian classic. So basil, oregano, the paprika is more for the color than the flavor. Paprika is a very mild flavor, but it gives a beautiful color to it. It gives you that nice golden brown. So that, and then onion powder, garlic, salt, and pepper. It's it's one of those things you can, with the breading of a chicken, you can just change it up by just switching out a few herbs. So if you wanted more of a spicy Cajun flavor, use Cajun spices in there, some chili powder, and switch it up. That's what's kind of nice about it is you can really change it up and change your flavors. Let's see how these are cooking up well. Perfect. I'm going to turn them up just a pinch. And then I've got my mushrooms here. Before we turn our tomatoes in, I'm going to do my mushrooms, but I'm going to first put in a little bit of garlic here. We want about a tablespoon of garlic. So I'm going to put in, if you're using fresh garlic, that's about 5 to 6 fresh cloves of garlic. And there we go. Turn this down just a bit. And then I'm going to give a splash more olive oil. I have such a big pan here that sometimes you need a little bit more when you're using bigger pans. There we go. Okay, you can smell it. It smells delicious. Let's slice up. I'm going to keep these to the side, but we're going to slice up our mushrooms real quick. We're just doing not too many mushrooms. This is about, I want to say, like 4 ounces of mushrooms. But I love mushrooms, and my 13-year-old loves mushrooms, so we will probably pick all the mushrooms out. I'm not about to skip them. That's what I always say. I'm like, tough kids, you guys can pick around it, Hopefully one day you'll try it and like it. We'll throw these mushrooms in here. I want to put the mushrooms in before the tomatoes because once you put the tomatoes in, they're going to let out a lot of liquid. And so you won't be able to get a good caramelization on your mushrooms. Okay. And I think this chicken, yep, is just about done with the first one. So let me grab a baking sheet and some paper towels. And this, I just always like to put paper towels on it so it soaks up any of that extra oil, keeps it crispy, prevents it from getting soggy. Always put it oil side down on there. That way it gets nice and crispy. But you can see a lovely golden crust on both sides. There we go. We got our first round in. I'm going to put our second. And okay, like you could easily also we're doing kind of like a marry me chicken sauce, but you could do this breaded chicken would be great for like a chicken parm where you would just do because we did Italian spices in it. So you would just add like a marinara sauce and some mozzarella cheese and Parmesan cheese. And you could do it with like spaghetti noodles or rigatoni. It's just like an easy way where you could make a big batch of this and then have like one chicken dish one night and another one another. Okay, getting our mushrooms. Just want to get a good little bit of a sear on them first. Okay. We've got our tomatoes here. This is about 5 vine ripe tomatoes. So we're going to add them in. You can hear as soon as we add them in, they've got just a lovely sizzle on them. And we're going to let them sweat out their natural liquid. There we go. Perfect. And then right here, you just want to make sure you're just scraping the bottom of your pan as you do it. That picks up any of the garlic and onion bits that have kind of stuck on it. You're deglazing it. That has a lot of rich flavor, so you want that in your sauce. There we go. We've got our fresh basil here. We're going to put our basil in and let that kind of clear out, as well as some oregano.
Yeah, 2 questions. Who taught you to cook, and at what age did you start cooking?
So I was self-taught, and I started cooking at 13 is when I started cooking over and cooking family dinners. But I was an observer in the kitchen. I was always watching and asking questions. And when we moved like my mom cooked all of our meals growing up, and then when we moved to Tennessee at 10, we got like a nanny who also cooked dinner for us while like my parents worked because they worked late. And I would always watch her cook all different foods. And then we had her for about like a year and a half, 2 years, and then that's when we all decided we were going to take over a night to cook. And then of course my parents cooked on like the weekends and whatnot. And it slowly evolved into me because I really enjoyed it and I really loved it. And it was like the best chore because it paid the best growing up. Yeah, I always was like, I can cook dinner, I get to decide what's for dinner, and I get paid to do it. It was like a win-win. And I feel like I learned so many basic cooking skills at such a young age that and I just loved it ever since. And my parents were really great about fostering it. They always gave me bought me the best like cooking stuff. If I wanted something, they would get it because of course they reaped the benefits. So I always got like the fun stuff to try, which I think really made my like love for cooking grow. It was funny because when I went to college, in my dorm room, I had like an illegal kitchen. Not many people did it, but I had a hot plate, and then I had like a little mini oven, and it was insane. But I would always like be cooking stuff, and the RA would be like, it smells really good in here, and I was like, oh, it's takeout, it's nothing. But I would cook all of my friends. I think we even cooked like a roast chicken dinner in there once, and mashed potatoes. We did like everything in my little dorm room. Definitely was not for fire code, but it just, over the years. So I could say I've been like cooking for 20 years now. So I just added in fresh basil to our tomatoes and our mushroom and onion. That was about 1/4 of a cup of fresh basil. And now we're going to add in, this is the rest of this oregano. It's about 1.5 teaspoons. It's going to give it a nice flavor.
Yes, 2 questions. Have you started planting your garden, and where did you go to college?
First question, have I started planting my garden? Not yet, but this weekend. I said I was going to do it this weekend. I've got it on my plan. We only have like one soccer game this weekend, so I should be free. And so we're going to start that. Let's start at least with our herb garden growing, and then we'll move on to like our tomatoes and stuff. But for college, I went to Iowa State for my undergrad, and then I did my master's and my doctorate at Vanderbilt. So kind of all over. I loved it. I was raised in Iowa, and we moved to Nashville, then I went back for college, and then I went back for grad school. So kind of spent, good chunks of my life in both places. We are going to take spinach. We're going to add this to our sauce over here. This is about, I want to say, 3 cups of fresh spinach, 3 to 4 cups. It wasn't quite a full bag. But nice thing about spinach is I can sneak a lot of it in and the kids won't notice it as much because it wilts down, but it's at least there. Okay, we're going to stir this in, and then we're going to add in some garlic salt. We haven't seasoned up any of this, so we're going to add a good chunk, about, I want to say 2 teaspoons of garlic salt. That's going to be our main salt for this. I'm going to stir it. And then our pasta water that we reserved. So remember when we're done boiling our pasta, we took out 2 cups of the starchy water. You can see how cloudy it is. That's the starch from the pasta. That's going to allow this pasta to thicken up really nicely. There. And I'm going to put it all in here. So I got all 2 cups of that reserved pasta water. And we're going to have this come to the boil and kind of thicken up. And then we're going to add a little bit of cream to give you that really rich, flavorful sauce. Okay, let's see how this is going. Okay, well, let's finally cut up our hammy melon. I'm gonna rinse off my knife and rinse this cutting board off. I didn't use the other side, so we'll give it a quick rinse so we don't have any flavors in our melon.
You have a couple questions. What field do you work in, and what was your focus in college?
So, here. Right now I do educational consulting. I'm able to work at home before that. But my undergrad I had 2 undergraduate degrees. So one in early childhood and then one in special education. And then for my master's, I got my master's in early childhood special education from Vanderbilt. And then my doctorate is in educational leadership and policy. So all in the field of education. I really enjoy teaching, working with young children, working with children with disabilities. Those are kind of my passion. I used to teach up until I was pregnant with my 4th child. And then I decided I took a step away from the field because I had never stayed home with any of my kids. I had kind of done the rat race of school, work, climbing the corporate ladder where I was at. And I decided to step away, and I have not regretted it. You know, it was like one of those things like, can we manage this? But it's been so rewarding, and I'm so glad I did. I loved it, enjoying this time home with my kids and my family. I really enjoy it, you know, and I'm sure I'll get back out there when I'm ready. But for now, I love it, you know. And I always know I'm sitting there and I'm like, yeah, I can go back out there and get a 6-figure job, no problem. I've got all the degrees and everything. But, I can't make up for this time home with my kids. Like, to me, that is is so important to me. I wouldn't be able to be there and see all of their stuff because it's just taking out the seeds of our hammy melon. It's just the world is not designed for you to be able to work and be at all of your kids' functions, And I was tired of being like a slave in the corporate world, or the world of academia was where I was at. It got to the point where I'm like, oh, I'm spending more time with other people's kids than my own kids. So, but it's been nice being home with them. I love it. It's been such a joy. It's just like there's so many things I missed out on with my older kids that I realize now, and but I'm happy I get to spend it with them because, you only have 18 years with each kid, before they're out, unless they leave early. And, my oldest daughter, that's a possibility. She has a possibility to graduate after her sophomore year of high school because she's, in all the advanced classes and everything. And so it's just like, it's, you just wonder, you're like, oh, do I only have another year or so with you? Before you go off in your own world and you embark on your own journeys. Okay, so we're cutting up our hammy melon. If you have never had a hammy melon before, they look like a cantaloupe, but they don't taste at all like a cantaloupe. They taste more like a honeydew. They don't have any musky flavor to it at all. They're sweet, refreshing, and they have a bit of a crunch. So if you've ever had an Asian pear, which is much crisper and crunchier than a traditional pear, that's the texture of a hammy melon. It has that nice kind of crunch to it, but it's delicious. It is like my kids' favorite, it's their favorite melon right now, just because it is so refreshing. They do love watermelon, but watermelon is hard to get it good when it's not watermelon season time. Okay, let me get a spoon and taste this real quick. See how we are flavor-wise. Delicious. We're going to let that simmer for a second. I'll add the cream at the very end because I don't want it to curdle at all. And sometimes if you overheat the cream, it can curdle up. Okay. Let's get these. So the trick is with the melon is when you slice it down like this, look, it will lay flat. So then it's on your cutting board, and all you have to do is slide your knife right underneath it. And it's much easier to cut than trying to follow the edge of it. Like I could cut it like this, but then I have to really follow the edge of my melon, which isn't as easy. Okay, let me turn this down. Our sourdough is calling us. So let me clear this space for it. And then we'll be on our final stretch. And get turn you off. My oven beeps incessantly. Okay. So we've got our first sourdough out. This is our traditional loaf. I'm going to put it right over here. And then we've got our lovely sage, caramelized onion, and garlic loaf. So we're going to put these here. Let me grab my little trivets because you want to get these out of the Dutch ovens as quick as possible because they continue to cook. So we're going to slide them down. Got our first loaf. I'm going to move this over here. So your Dutch oven, they're designed to keep the heat in. And so I like to take them off right away so they stop cooking the bottom so that your bottom doesn't get too chewy. There is our second loaf. So we have this first loaf right here is our sage, garlic, and caramelized onion. You can see the bits of it. And then our second loaf is our traditional loaf. And I'm going to show you why I want to take them out of that bottom so fast. You see how we have a nice light brownish color to it? If you keep them in there too long, that continues to crisp up. Okay. Let's get our last bit of chicken out. Okay. We'll turn off this. So we've got our pan fried chicken right here. Now we're going to finish off our sauce. So let's add our pasta in. And then that was because it's sitting in our colander. So we'll just break it out. You want to cook it to about an al dente. So you don't want to cook it all the way to a certain thing. You want the al dente because it's going to soak up a bit more flavor. Let me take this right out. And we still have our skillet on a nice and low. You want to add it and cook it just for a minute or two with it in here. We're going to give it a good stir. Then we're going to add in about a 1/3 cup of cream to give you that really rich, creamy, marry me chicken to it. So I'm just going to give a guesstimate about a 1/3 cup. I'll stir it and see how I like the way it looks. There we go. And then I'm just making sure you get all of those nice little seasoning bits on the bottom. It looks fabulous. Okay. You can see our fresh tomatoes and our spinach in there. They've wilted up nicely. And then we cooked it in our sauce is made from some of the reserved pasta water, cream. We used fresh basil, oregano, and garlic, and an onion. And that just to give you that nice, rich, delicious flavor. Okay, let me show you how we're going to serve it up today. So let me grab a small cutting board because I like to cut up my chicken and serve the chicken on top of it. So we're going to cut up one chicken real quick for you guys. And let me we'll just wipe my knife right here and get all that hammy melon flavor off of it. So I like to cut it up in nice little strips. You can see how tender and juicy it is, cooked all the way through. That's what butterflying it, cutting it in half does. Okay, let's get our little food shovel out. And we're going to serve up. We kind of did a whole little mix of noodles here, using up what was left in our pantry. And then we have that. And then, of course, we'll lay our chicken right on top. And the best way to top off any pasta is with some Parmesan cheese. So we're going to sprinkle a little bit of Parmesan cheese over it, and that's going to melt into our pasta to make just a delicious kind of creamy tomato sauce for our Marry Me chicken with pan-fried chicken. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, show you what we're cooking for our family, and hopefully you guys learned something along the way. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And again, our videos, we post on the link on our page every single day, so you can rewatch and cook along with us. Well, guys, thanks again for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe.